Me and trees don't get along. I went backwards, I threw the chainsaw, and I just remember looking up like this. What does it really mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to be a child of God, and how does that affect me? I still don't fully understand God. I never will. So there's not like a point that you get to where you're like, okay, I understand enough about what it means to be saved. Now I can go and ask God into my life. No, God accepts us as we are. God will fill in the blank.
For somebody who has considered going to church, what is something you can tell them to finally get them to go?
I feel like for some people, they don't want to go to the church because they're a sinner and they feel like they won't fit in.
How does someone trust God in whatever they're doing? Welcome back, guys, to So What's the Point podcast. Landon, thank you so much for being here
Yep.
on the podcast.
Pleased to be.
So glad that you could just take some time out of your day, come and have a conversation here. We hope that you guys enjoy this. And just to get started, for the context for the people who will be watching, listening, what do people need to know about you? And I'm gonna say this in relation to kind of how you grew up, where you grew up, just a little bit of that backstory of you, literally from the beginning to where you are now.
Oh boy, that's a long place to start. So one day I was born.
That's good.
I was born in Pennsylvania, right?
Okay.
Lived there for a few years, moved up to here, grew up in a Christian home,
Okay.
which has been a good thing. A lot of Christian family, good Christian friends.
Mm.
Went to a variety of different churches for a long time. Came here, started going here about a year and a half ago-ish.
Pennsylvania. I actually
Pennsylvania.
didn't know this.
You didn't?
I had
Okay.
no idea. How long were you down in Pennsylvania?
Only a few years. I was there for like the first 3 years of my life.
Oh,
So it doesn't really count. I remember some things, not much.
What do you remember?
We had a house down there that was called the Circle House,
Okay.
and it was literally a circle. And no joke, I would run in a circle around the house, and my dad would chase me around the house. That's all I remember from down there, really, in
Huh.
Pennsylvania. It was the weirdest house. It was literally a circle. It was really weird, but yeah.
That's very cool. So then you moved up to Maine right
Mhm.
after, and is
Yeah.
that where you, well, I won't say, but where you reside now?
Yeah, no, that's where I am now. We've been at that
Southern Maine.
house for 15 years, 13, 14 years, 14. Yeah.
Okay. What has been your experience with going to multiple different churches? What has been the differences, main differences going from, I don't know how many you've gone to.
So there's a wide variety of churches I've been to, but the biggest difference I'd say in them is denomination in some ways, not necessarily, but primarily in size. That's been one of the big differences. I've been to some really big churches of a few thousand people, especially when I was younger is where I was at. And although there's a beauty in that, and there's a lot of people there that you can get to know and interact with, there's also, it's so big. Like it's almost too big sometimes where you feel like you're just lost in the crowd and you don't know the people that I like church. I went to a church for a long time for I think it was 7 years. It was a smaller church. Only when I left, it was probably only like 120 people.
Wow. Okay.
But when I was there, it was only really 40 of us. So it was a really small church for a long time. And there's something really cool about a small church in that everyone knows everyone. And it's like a cool part about the church. Half the church was a family. So we had that aspect of just being a big church family is all it was. And so people were really open with each other and just sharing in public prayer. There was a cool thing that I really miss about that church was that like if someone had something they needed prayer for or something to confess or anything that it would have been, we would our worship leader Ron, he would stop us in the middle of the worship service and ask, does anyone have anything they want to say? Anything. And we would sit down and we would talk about it, we'd pray about it, and it'd be just a whole congregation thing. Like if someone was sick and needed healing, someone was in trouble and needed help, we would pray for it. If someone had something to confess and get right with God for, we would pray about it. It was just it was a really open family kind of church, the best way I could explain it. And I just felt like that really embodied like what God means as church family. Not that I don't love this church. I love this church. A lot of people in this church, which I do love. It's a really good thing. But there's also something special about that smaller kind of church. So those are sort of the two sides of the spectrum I've been on. Then I'm here, which is about in the middle. It's like, what do we have now? 700-ish people?
600.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. And with that many people, it's good because you can know a lot of the people here and really feel connected with the amount of people are here. But more than that, there's a lot of people that can influence you and a lot of good people that can influence you. And it's a good thing. It's a good medium. It's good to be in the middle. That's in a nutshell. Yeah.
With the bigger church, I'm going to ask, because you've been to the bigger church, what is one pro, just one pro of a bigger church.
Mhm.
What's one con?
Oh, that's a good question. One pro of a bigger church is the church can do a lot more. There's
Mm,
a lot more giving in the church, and the church can just do a lot more. Since there's so many people, there's so many different talents and gifts and abilities that everyone has, where you can actually end up doing a lot more. And when the church stays focused on what God wants them to do, it
mm,
can become a really powerful church, and they can do a lot.
mm.
That was definitely one of the big pros. The con I had is that you get lost in the crowd. That's the best way I can explain it. It's
Got
like
it.
you lose some of that family aspect of a church, in
Mm,
that it's so big that you can't feel like it's your brothers and sisters, and that you can't. I like knowing everyone in a church. That's me. I
mm.
just like to. But when there's thousands of people, that's a lot of people, and you
Yeah.
can't do that. And yeah, that's sort of the two big
Mm.
things.
What about the smaller church? 120, maybe
Hmm.
less. Some people are
Yeah.
part of. What's one pro for that, and what's one con for that?
It's almost the opposite,
Almost the
the
opposite.
last one, in that it does feel like a family in some ways,
Mm,
and which is cool to me because it's like you can know everyone and you can feel close with everyone and you can see how God works in everyone's lives. Because the thing about a big church is God might be working in everyone in the room, but you wouldn't know that because you can't know everyone. But in a small church, you can see how everyone's lives are influenced and how
mm.
everyone influences each other's lives. And it's a really cool thing to see. There was this one cool story I'll tell you
Yeah.
from the small church I had. There was this woman who was going through some stuff at the time, and she was trying to see what God really wanted her to do.
Mm,
And what was cool is that there was this Bible verse that popped up about 3 or 4 times in the midst of her week. But what was cool is it not only popped up on like the Bible app online, or like this is the verse of the day or something, but it popped up. Someone else mentioned the verse to her. Then that Bible verse, her husband works on vehicles, and he was working on my truck that week.
mm.
And my truck on the keychain had a little keychain with that Bible verse
Oh
on it.
wow.
And it was just really cool to see all these different ways God worked it all in. So just like, okay, this is what you want me to do. This is how you want me to go forward. And
Hmm.
it's just a cool thing where like a church is small enough and open with each other, and that you can see how God's working and putting all these pieces together. And
Mm.
that was just a cool thing.
Did you feel that with a bigger church there were more closed doors, maybe with the people kind of behind the scenes running some of the groups and the services that that church was doing?
That's a good question. I'll give you some context for when I
Yeah.
was in the bigger church. I was younger.
Right.
So although I wasn't as involved in all that in the
Right.
first place, even though I did see some of it, what I remember is that with a bigger church, closed doors, yes, in some ways, in that like there's the people who run it, and there's a very interesting. It feels like a business sometimes. Big
Mm.
churches feel like a business, in that like there's these hierarchies and like all these different things going on, which is important because they need that structure to be able to run that big of a church sometimes. But it can lead to some closed doors things. But again, when it's run properly,
Mm.
God can do a lot through it. Not that he can do a lot through a little church, a lot through a medium church, and a lot through a huge church. He could do whatever he wants to do. But ultimately, it's that as long as you're focused on God, he'll work through you, whatever he wants to, no matter your size. So that's the thing with the big church, is that when they are focused, they can do a lot.
Were there any big differences in the teachings between the churches you've gone to and then coming here to Moss Brook?
I'd say the biggest difference that I can point out is the style of teaching. When I was in that bigger church, I was younger, and it was a lot. They basically separated all of us like between grades, like we had kindergarten class and like
Mm.
whatnot for Sunday service, right? Because it was such a big church, they could have all these different grade groups and different things.
Sure.
And that was a lot more geared toward the younger individuals, right?
Mm.
Which was cool. Now, the two biggest differences I would say that I remember is between here and the small church I went to. An interesting thing about the small church I went to is they had a Sunday kids church,
Yeah, sure.
but they really encouraged the kids to stay in for the sermon,
Mm.
which was something I thought was really cool because it allowed for the kids to get exposed to what they were trying to teach early, even though some of the things they might not understand. But it removed like that. I remember when I was a kid learning different Bible stories and then coming back to them later and be like, wait, that's what it said. And like
Oh,
it
yeah.
all of a sudden making sense. But having,
Yeah.
even though they might not understand it, just exposing them to that so that they
Mm.
can try and understand it, there's a lot of value in it to me. But what was interesting about that church was that it was an hour-long sermon, and the way they taught the sermons was very deep. So it's hard to listen to an hour-long deep sermon every week. That
Yeah.
can be really difficult to get everything out when really you need to listen to that same sermon 3 times over the course of 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, so that was one disadvantage of it, but it was really good when you were able to then sit down and study and focus it 'cause it went really deep. Now, that
Mm,
was a difference between that church and this church. Now, I'm not saying the sermons aren't deep because they do go into depth and they have a lot of things that they cover. Rather than it being a philosophical study,
mm,
like it was in my old church, at this church, it's more of like practicality.
mm.
Like in that here, you're learning, okay, this is what it says. How do I apply it?
Did any of them have anything good for teenagers? Kind of getting out of that
That's a good question.
so-called kid
Yeah,
stage,
yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of going into the next.
That without getting too much detail,
Sure.
that's one of the things that causes some difficulties in some churches. With my
And this is what
last
I'm
one,
trying to
yeah,
touch on.
I
Yeah.
see, I saw it coming, but what was interesting with the last church is that it was one big family. Like half the church was a big family,
Mm,
um, and so they're all intermarried siblings and whatnot. And there are pros to that in that they saw each other all of the time. But the
mhm,
one problem with that is that because they were seeing each other all the time, they didn't necessarily have a reason for teen groups and like youth
mm,
groups and different Bible studies and things like that because they were already all doing that together all
mm,
the time. So that made it so that like the other half of the church in some ways
mm.
wasn't entirely involved with it as much in that they could go and be involved. They absolutely could be, but it just we didn't necessarily have that like, okay, kids program, teens program, adults,
Got it.
right? That kind of step by step thing, which does have its benefits.
Something definitely to take away from it would be to you need to keep the doors open to people,
Hmm.
especially in joining a smaller group of people for whether it be a ministry we do or like a small group like what we do. With that, the Mossbrook is growing.
Yeah,
We're just over
yeah,
600, and it's been recent that we've kind of hit this crazy crazy number. I
yeah.
remember when it was like 200. What is something that we could apply moving forward to make sure that we don't lose the
Mm,
family-like atmosphere
that's a good
of a
question.
smaller church?
It boils down to this idea of family and very openness versus like this rigid structure. And there's sort of a
Mm,
fine balance between the two, sort of. Like there's some churches that are too rigid. Like they
yeah.
seem like a business,
Mm,
which the church isn't meant to be a business.
right.
If anything, it's meant to be a hospital, right?
Mm,
And then on the other side, it's where there's not enough structure. And that because of that lack of structure, some people end up being left out and different things like that. I think there's this fine middle ground between the two that can be found. And ultimately, no church is perfect. No church
mm,
is going to be perfect. We're all going to mess up. We're human, right? But it's that if we keep our focus on God
mm,
and what he's wanting us to do, then he's going to push us in the direction we need to go. And I'm not saying churches are bad. Every church should grow. That's a good thing. God does that for a reason. Um, but as that growth comes along, it just needs to be even more reinforced that we need to focus on God
mm,
and that whatever he wants us to do and how he wants us to push us forward and where he wants us to put our time and our resources and what he wants us to work on, that should be the focus rather than how can we get more people to come to
mhm.
church?
Yeah.
Or what's the best way to use our money the best sometimes? Because God might ask us to do something that might not make entire sense to us, but it's that if he asks us to do it, we should do it.
Mm,
And I guess that's my biggest thing is like the church should be a family. Families are messy. No family's perfect.
mm,
But in that striving for a family, the one thing that's going to hold that family together and keep it being a family instead of a business is that a business is run by people, but a family should be run by God.
mm,
And if we keep God as the center, it will make sure it is a church family rather than a church business.
mm. I gotta come back to this, but
Okay,
first,
sounds good.
I gotta get a little story here from you.
Do
So,
tell.
you've had some pretty crazy injuries, and now
Yeah.
I've heard you had to explain,
Mhm.
kind of this list, kind of over the last weeks quite a few times. Gotta ask for these guys here,
Okay, I'm ready.
and I need full detail. I
Oh,
want
I
you to
could
go.
give details.
I want you to go full story mode. Take your
Okay, I'm
time.
ready.
Go through it. Okay. Where did these all start?
Oh, sweet goodness, Justin. I've had a lot of head injuries over the year. It explains me entirely. But I used to keep a list of how many head injuries I had just because I thought it was funny. But
Is that normal?
when I was younger, we had living room. And
Mm.
before church something, we thought it was the funniest thing to play like a church worship song and run around circles and like dance to it and stuff. We thought it
Okay,
was
yeah,
really
yeah.
funny. I was like 7 or something,
Sure.
and it was just the funniest thing to do. But there was this end table. Okay.
Oh,
There was
man.
this end table in that living room with a nice sharp corner on it. Okay, Justin. I hit that end table with my head, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And every time it was on Sunday.
It's like the variable.
So, yeah,
It's the
I never
same.
have worn a hat to church except for when I did that.
Oh,
We would be doing our thing, running around dancing. I would go and trip over some sibling's leg. It would
got it.
happen somehow, and I would tumble forward, and every time I did it, it would be that the corner of my head would hit the corner of that end table. And one time was really bad. I should have got stitches for it. I didn't, of course. Yeah, that's sort of where it all started. I have a nice big scar on the top of my head
Oh.
still from it, and the paint's actually peeled off the corner of that end table because of how many times I hit it.
Oh,
So there you
okay.
go. You wanted the details? You wanted how it all started?
Yeah,
That's
that's how it
sort of
started.
how it started.
So what did it snowball into after that?
I've had a few concussions over the years.
Okay.
Not Yeah, concussions. I've had snowmobiling injuries,
Oh,
sled injuries.
okay. Give me a specific story that you very much so remember, if you can at all.
Lucas will remember this story. We used to, as a kid, our dads would pull us around in a snowmobile sled. So like he'd be on the snowmobile, we'd be in the sled behind him, and we'd go out on the lake, and they'd pull us around the lake. And it
Right.
was a lot of fun. Well, we found out that at the lake there were these rocks that
Hmm.
would come up out of the lake, and ice would cover them. And they make a nice jump. So
Mm.
you could send it right with that sled and jump right off of it, right? So we're like, Dad, you got to do this with us.
Yeah,
It's gonna be so much
of
fun.
course.
Me and Lucas and a few other kids were in the vehicle, right? Or in the sled. And we hit that jump, and some of the kids leaned sideways, and we flipped the sled. They all fell out except for me and Lucas. And we're inside of that sled as it's flipped upside down, being drug on the ice across the lake. That was no fun. No fun at all, but it was a good story.
Yeah, that is.
Um,
Did you come out on
oh, it
scathed?
hurt. But overall, just a few scratches, a few
Okay.
bumps and
Okay.
bruises. We were okay. No broken bones, no nothing.
The loft.
Oh, the loft,
You,
Justin. Why do you have to bring up the loft?
you gotta keep
That's sort of
going
like,
here.
so I had like these what I call amateur level injuries when I was younger,
Amateur level.
right? Just
Amateur
like
level. Okay, hold on. We're gonna stop there. Amateur level injuries. What is this definition? I've got to know.
minor head injuries, maybe a little concussion here and there,
Okay.
maybe like slamming your head into the corner of an end table, being drug around by a sled, hitting your head on a tree, getting a tree dropped on you. Those are like all amateur level injuries. Okay. Then we
Okay.
go into more like professional
All
grade,
right. So what are these
such
professional grade
as
injuries?
the loft, Justin. So when I was 14, we went up to my uncle's camp, right? We were going on a partridge hunting trip. It was a lot of fun. Had a great time. We were about to leave the next day to come back. So it was
Of
last night I was up
course.
there.
Yep.
But the night before, I slept terribly. I was on a bed. I did not like it at all up in the loft. So I switched with my dad. Of course, these were just mattresses lying up on the floor of the loft. And of course, the loft didn't have a railing because it was still a work in progress.
Okay.
It hadn't been finished yet, right? And so I'm laying on this bed. It's right, just a mattress right on the floor. And this is the one my dad had slept on prior night and was closer to the edge of the loft. Not like right there, but closer. I had a pillow with me, right? And I'm known for talking and rolling in my sleep. I used to do it
Okay.
all the time when I was a kid. I would walk around the house and have conversations with my mother in my sleep.
Okay.
It was scary, but that's what I used to do. What I did was I rolled off that mattress in my sleep and then proceeded to roll off the loft. And you know that feeling like when you wake up in the middle of the night and feel like you're falling, but
Yeah.
you're not because you're just lying in your bed?
Right.
I had that feeling, but I was falling. So I rolled off that loft, and in my sleep, that pillow I had held on to as I rolled, I hucked it down and woke up. And well, my aunt was sleeping on the couch on the
Oh.
first floor, and that pillow nailed her in the head as I'm falling. I wake up as I'm falling, hear her scream because I just hit her with a pillow in the head in the middle of the night. I come down, my right hip hit the arm of that couch she was sleeping on. I came down and I hit my stomach. I fractured my jaw.
Yeah.
I injured my front teeth. I just wrecked my whole everything because I fell face first. Well,
Oh
not
my.
face first, but like chest, face, this side
Yeesh.
first. And the beautiful thing was that if I hadn't hit that couch, I would have probably wrecked myself quite a bit worse. And there was also a wood stove, like 6 to a foot in front of my head where that was. It was way too close to way many things. God's kept me alive this long. I don't know how, but he has. Um, so yeah, that was that story. We got up. Of course, my dad heard a big thump on the bottom of the floor in the middle of the night, came out to see what it was. Of course, it was me. And we ended up driving home that night. So we're like, yeah, we don't know how land, so we're going to drive home because it's northern Maine. We're 2.5 hours from a hospital. We're just going to drive
Yeah.
and get closer, see what happens. I was fine. We
Okay.
drove straight home that night. It was like 4.5 hours, and I was fine. I wake up in the morning, and my mom's like, why did you not take him to the hospital? And my dad's like, he seemed fine.
He seems to fine. Do you have any lasting repercussions
My
from
hip's
that?
good. My
Okay.
jaw's a little screwed up. It's not bad.
Okay.
And then besides that, no, everything else is good.
That's pretty good.
Which is good. Yeah,
That's pretty good.
it's just pretty good. Yeah, so that's the loft, Justin. That's more on the professional
That's
level.
on the
Like I felt
professional
like that
level.
was a little bit higher on the injury scale.
Yeah. Now to the most recent.
Oh goodness, you're gonna keep going.
Is the most
Okay.
Is this the most recent? That's professional level, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Was there any other?
I mean,
up
I
there?
had my 2 what I call professional level ones since then. I think I've had 3
Oh, yeah,
professional
that's
level
right.
ones in my life.
Okay.
About
So,
3. That's what I leave it at.
all right. So honestly, for me, the biggest one, which was just just over, was a year?
My back?
Yeah.
I did that
Year and a half?
2 Julys ago.
Okay.
So about a year and a half
Okay.
ago. Yeah.
All right.
That's another story.
What-
God's
what-
kept me alive by some miracle this far, and I'm still somewhat in one piece because of it.
It's-
But so me and trees don't get along.
Okay.
I've never gotten along with trees. I like cutting down trees and cutting up trees. It just
Probably
never goes well.
Probably why they don't like you.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of context about me and trees before I get to this story.
Okay.
When I was like 15, we were doing some tree work, clearing out a lot down at my place. We were working and they were cutting this tree. And I was walking out to see what's going on. I was going to come out and help, right? And I was walking and there was all this brush on the ground. So I was looking at the ground, trying not to trip over the brush that I had.
Right.
And the next thing I hear is Landon. And I look up and a tree about yay thick comes down and catches me right here, like right between the eyes. I'm like, come on. Of course, it was Sean that cut down the tree. He didn't know I was walking out there. I wasn't looking. That's a little context for me and trees. I was called the unicorn for like a week because I had like a big,
Oh.
yeah, no, it was special, but that was rough. To get to the other story, I was working on another tree job. You know those things they call like widowmakers, where it's like the big tree branch that comes off and is broken off halfway and just hanging there,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
worried it's gonna fall on somebody, right?
Right.
And so I was going to clear one of those, and typically you do it with like a pole saw, so you don't have to actually go up the tree or
Sure.
anything. But I didn't have a long enough pole saw,
Mm.
so I took a ladder. I went up the tree. I was basically on the opposite side of the tree from where the tree branch was, so I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. I strapped the ladder to the tree to make sure I wouldn't go anywhere, like a
Right.
good, sensible individual.
There you go.
Right? I get up to the tree, and I actually didn't have my ladder high enough, so I was like reaching up, cutting it like this, so it was
Mhm.
kind of awkward. I cut that tree branch, and I think it was because that widowmaker was hanging off the front of it. When it fell, it came down and it swung around the tree, and the bottom that branch ended up coming down. Now, figures the tree's like this big, so the branch is like this big. So it's like a mini tree falling off the tree, and it comes down and it hits the base of that ladder I was on. And because I had it strapped in the middle, it basically like sent it 90 degrees sideways with me on the top of it. And of course, I wasn't holding on to the ladder; I was holding on to the chainsaw with both hands.
Yeah.
So I went, and I just remember, my poor buddy Jake was working with me that day, and I told him if that tree branch comes down anywhere near that ladder, you get out of the way, because he was at the base of the ladder holding it for me, so it wouldn't go anywhere, right? That tree branch comes down, hits the base of that ladder, and I just remember I went backwards. I threw the chainsaw, and I just remember looking up like this, and I'm like, wait. I felt this feeling before, of course, with the loft and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I just go backwards, and at that point, I'm like, I just give up. Okay. I came down, and I fell 30 feet.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Thankfully, God and grace upon grace with me, there was a flower bed there. So it was a bunch of
Okay,
mulch.
okay.
I had actually put in that mulch
Oh, there you
like
go.
a few years before.
Oh, okay.
And I made a big, about foot deep indentation where that mulch bed was. And talk about getting the wind knocked out of you. I mean, I hit the ground, and the first thing I did was I rolled over on all fours, and I just stood there. Well, crawled there for a second, just stayed there because I couldn't breathe for a solid minute because the wind was just completely knocked out of me. I went and I stood up and I'm like, something does not feel right. So I made sure to be really careful. I went and I sat down in my truck and I'm sitting there like, this doesn't feel good at all. And what ended up happening is you always have vertebrae in your back, right? And the vertebrae right between the bottom of my shoulder blades from T7 to T9. T7, I basically squished like a pancake. Like, yeah, I flattened it quite a bit. T8 a little bit, and T9 not too much.
Okay.
But that's basically what ended up happening. Is I had what 3 were called compression fractures, where it basically your bones are like a honeycomb almost.
Right.
Like they have all these little holes and spots in them because that's how it's a structure. It's like a little building. And when those holes collapse, it's called a compression fracture because you're squishing it and crushing it, basically, is what you do. And so that's what ended up happening is I fractured those 3 different spots and compressed them. And the miracle was that the way I fell, it was basically the best possible spot I could have fallen. Because if I fell on my tailbone, there's a bunch of nerves down there that it could have crushed, and the tailbone takes forever to heal when you fracture it. It does not heal well. And the other thing was I was really close to landing on the top of my neck, which that just doesn't go well at all. So it was actually like the perfect spot to land because of that, and also because like now, because of where it is with that arch in your back, because it compressed there, it almost doesn't affect me now. Like I can do almost everything. I lost a lot of muscle because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am blessed that I can still walk. So
Yeah. What was your recovery time on that?
I was the longest 9 months of my
9
life.
months.
But it
Man, a
was
long time.
3 months after that where I couldn't bend over. I was in a back brace for 3 months and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift over 5 pounds. The first few days after that, it was no fun. I lived off of chocolate pudding, Tylenol, and ibuprofen. That was my diet.
Oh my
And,
goodness. Wow.
but so that's that story. Grace of God, I'm still here again, and
Yeah.
he's still going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a lot of my story in that I never used to injure myself. Like I was very proud of myself that I didn't have a broken bone for years of my life. I dislocated a finger, but I didn't have a broken bone for years of my life. And I'm like, this is great. And then that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you live and you learn. And God kept me alive through it. So
Yeah.
I mean, I owe it to him. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So yeah. There's many more stories I could tell you, but
Yes.
those are a lot of the highlights.
Yes.
So.
One that everyone has to know, though. The most recent.
Oh my goodness. I'm not going to hear the end of this story.
Everyone has to know. This one's amazing to me.
Basically what happened was my sister, God bless her heart, she wanted to make me fried ice cream. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I love fried ice cream. Little did I know or even think she's never worked with oil before. I'm sitting there playing a video game with Josh Wessels, right? We're having a great time. And so she's making fried ice cream and I'm like one room over. I can see her doing it. About like 20, 25 minutes later, she starts screaming, Landon, help. And I'm like, what in the world? I look over and she had this pot with that fried ice cream she's trying to make in oil. And she got the oil too hot and it lit on fire. So, I mean, when oil lights on fire, it's like poof, it's just coming right out of the pot. So I'm like, okay, what do I do here? My sister's screaming at me that she needs help. What do I do? Well, obviously I'm going to go over and help her, right? So she doesn't know what to do. And I guess I didn't know what to do either. I go over and like, it didn't even cross my mind that it was oil. Even though she told me she was making fried ice cream, I forgot that you use oil for that. And I just was not thinking. And what do you do when you see fire?
Yeah.
You put water on it. I took that pot, I turned on the faucet, and I shoved it under that faucet. And holy cow! I remember blinking like when it happened. Then I opened my eyes and like flames across the ceiling, all around me, all in front of me. And of course, my hand's still on that pot, and it's like melting my hand. Like, oh, it was no fun. Sorry, but it was just no. And my brother, who has a bedroom off of the kitchen a little ways, saw flames underneath his door frame. Okay, it was bad. So that happens. Smoke alarms, of course, go off, and we have way too many in our house. So it's like the bomb squad needs to come because there's missiles inbound. But so I try to find the fire extinguisher because I don't know if it's gonna light the house fire. I have no idea what's happening. I saw fire. I put it underwater. I saw more fire. I go for fire extinguisher. um, so I
Yeah.
can't find the fire extinguisher because my family moved it from where it was before. That was really helpful. But it didn't light anything on fire. The kitchen was completely totaled, covered in black soot everywhere. So I go and I'm like, wow, my hand really hurts for
Yeah.
some reason. So I go and I like try to wash it a little bit and I'm looking at it and I'm like, that doesn't look good. And so I went and made sure Reagan was fine because she was, of course, behind me. Thankfully,
Oh
she
my
was
word.
behind me because I had a big, thick sweatshirt on at the time, and that thing was covered in oil, like hot. It was awful. I'm glad I had the sweatshirt because
Yeah.
that stuff's hot when it comes off. But what ended up happening is that oil basically blows everywhere, and it's really hot. And I got like, I had burns on my feet. I had burns on both hands. This hand was pretty bad. I burned this one pretty good. Then some burns on my face and whatnot. And yeah, burns are no fun. I can't
Mm.
recommend that. Blisters, it's no fun. Don't do it. Don't be me. But that's the most recent story. I have a hilarious picture I will send to
All right,
you because
awesome.
it's just my brother standing there with like the entire background. I'm just black, and he's like, "Huh?" Yeah, that's Landon's most recent one. So now, whenever there's fire, Landon's not allowed anywhere near it.
A lot of interesting, hard, crazy things that you've gone through already.
That's injuries. Yeah.
And that's injury wise.
Landon's been through a lot of crazy things, but moral of the story: trust God. He gets you
Mm.
through it.
Which
Yeah.
to get to that point of trust God
Mm.
through that all of
Mhm.
that, and saying that you grew up in a Christian home
Christian home doesn't mean perfect home.
doesn't mean perfect, but you had
But
the word
yeah.
right, and you went.
Mm.
You weren't indoctrinated. We won't say that, right? But um, that's not what we recommend.
Not the recommendation.
Not a
No.
recommendation, but you had availability to
Yeah.
read a Bible and to have other
Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
already had deep faith in the Word of God in your life. But was there a specific moment that you came to the realization that God is real and that Christ came to die for your sins?
Of course, I was that good Christian kid. I was a
Mm,
scary kid. But when I was younger and like I didn't really know what it meant, but like sure, I'm a Christian, whatever that means. I remember I think I was 9. It's you remember that other church I told you, the smaller church?
mm,
Well, the first time I went to that church, it was actually it was the last time they were going to be at the building they were at. It
mm,
was this old memorial hall place down near my house, and we went there. And I don't remember if it was something significant about the sermon or what exactly it was, but we went there for the first time and I came back and I sat in my room and I'm like, something doesn't seem right. I don't think I'm doing this quite right. I don't think I get what this fully means.
mm.
Like, what does it really mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to be a child of God? And how does that affect me? That was like not exactly what I said, but
Sure, but
roughly the idea. So I'm like, I remember just being there on my bed and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what this means. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. But I do know that you know what you're doing, and I just want you to help me. Show
mm,
me what you want. What do you want me to do, and how do you want me to do it? What does this mean? And that's basically when I remember it starting. So I'm like, Lord, this is me accepting you. This is me
mm,
saying, I know you want me. Come get me. I want you.
mm,
And that sort of was the first point for me. I had no idea what it meant.
mm.
To this day, I know more of what it meant. Still don't fully understand it all.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
ultimately that was the start of it, and it's just God. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So
Mm. Do you think that you even need full understanding of salvation, what Christ did for you, to be able to say, I'm giving my life to God?
when you're a 2-year-old, you don't even understand what
Mm,
food is. You just know it tastes good.
mm,
Now, there's that childlike innocence that, right? You don't understand the full world. You don't understand yourself.
mm,
But if you want to make a committal to Jesus, I trust that he's going to grow that into what he wants it to be. It goes back to the idea that to this day, I still don't fully understand. I understand a lot more than when I first started. I still don't fully understand God. I
mm,
never will. So there's not like a point that you get to where you're like, okay, I understand enough about what it means to be saved. Now I can go and ask God into my life. No, no. God accepts us as we are, we're all broken. None of us are perfect.
Mm,
God will fill in the blank. As long as we trust him and our goal in our heart is to pursue him, whether or not we understand it, I
mm.
think he'll guide us to what it really means.
So,
Ultimately.
yeah, how old were you roughly?
I think 9,
Around 9.
around 9.
How old are you now?
18. I'm getting old, Justin. I'm getting old. I'm feeling it. My wrist can tell me the temperature outside, Justin. It's bad. I'm getting old.
There's probably some people that are a little older,
Yeah.
probably sitting there going, "What's this guy talking about?"
Yeah.
He's been through the ringer. From looking back now to your 9-year-old self, do you now look back and can you see a specific moment in time or just general moments where God was really prevalent in your life
Mm,
and you're like, "Oh, he had a
mm,
hand on
mhm.
this," and you now look back and really see that?
That ties into like a big thing for me.
Okay.
God constantly is telling me to trust him more. And I
Mm,
keep getting to a point where I'm like, okay, God, I fully trust you. Then he's like, no, you don't. Look at this. You don't fully trust
mm,
me. And I'm like, oh, yep, you're right. We'll work on that too. And it's that idea of God being there for you. And
mm,
he's always there for you, whether you see it or not. Sometimes we're not willing to accept it. Sometimes we're not willing to see it, but he is actually always there for you. When I was younger, there's been a lot of drama in my life, but a lot of family drama, a lot of other things, and injury drama. But we'll stick to the injuries. Every time I went through one of those things, there would be a person who would tell me I was lucky to be alive.
mm,
And every time I heard that, I'm like, yeah, you are right. But I know God was there and covered
mm,
me. And that's the only reason I'm alive today. And just seeing that over and over through injury after injury after injury, God's just been like, hey, you will be stupid and you're gonna make mistakes and stuff's gonna happen, but I'm still there for you.
mm,
And it's through that and then just through mistakes I've made in life. I'm far from perfect. I Yeah. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but even with all those mistakes, God's like, "Hey, I know you screwed up, but we're gonna work on it from here. And you
mm,
know what you did wrong, and we're gonna go from here and fix it. And
mm,
we'll do better next time. And if you mess up again, well, try better.
mm.
We'll try
Do you have
again."
any specific people, maybe mentors, you could even
Mm,
call them,
mhm.
um, that really helped you in your journey through growing faith?
There's quite a few people, but to
Okay.
mention like 3,
Sure.
I'll leave it at 3.
Yeah.
My pastor at my old church, his name was Dan.
Mhm.
He The sermons he gave were very deep and,
Mm,
like, they really made you think, and sometimes to its detriment, but most it was a good thing because it
mm,
required you to think, and even though I, at the time, was a little too young to fully understand what he was saying, and even when I was older, was still struggling to understand what he was saying, it required me to think, and it
mm,
required me to really look and be like, "Lord, I don't understand this. I need you to explain it to me." Because that's something I've learned is that when I try to sit down and read the Bible, I and of myself can't understand it. I'm not that.
mm,
I can't do it. But it's when God opens my eyes and is like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to tell you through this today.
mm,
It might be different than what I'm trying to tell you tomorrow, but this is what I want you to hear today." And that was one of those big things in my life, just come to the realization that I can't understand this on my own. I have to have God here with me to understand it.
mm,
So that was the big influence on my life. Also, my mother. I love my mother. um, but she was just always a good example. Still is.
mm,
Always a good example of what it means to be patient,
mm,
to let people trust you, to be honorable,
mm.
to really love someone. Um, I come from a very frustrating, hard-headed family, but she still loves us. So
Mm,
that's one of those things, just like, what does it mean for God to love us? Well, if my mother loves me that much and
mm,
God says he loves me more,
mm.
he must love me quite a lot.
Mm,
So, yeah, I'd say that was another big influence on my life. And then another one was one of my old teachers, Karen Maltmany. She taught
okay.
me a lot when I was growing up in my high school years, especially. I went to a co-op private school kind of situation thing, where she was one of my teachers.
Mm,
And although she's had hardships in her life, she really taught me like what it meant to think,
mm,
and it was just a cool thing, and like how to see, like, I don't know, as my dad says it, the forest through the trees, right? There
mm,
might be something you take at face value here, but there's something deeper underneath of it that you can actually get.
mm,
And that, when it comes to the Bible, is really useful because at face value you might take it as this, but there's really something deeper underneath that is there to be seen. And just understanding that there's more than first meets the eye.
a question a lot of people have, even as believers, but I hear it more from people who aren't. is, why do good people go through hard
Mm,
things? Why do
mhm.
harder things
That's a good
happen?
question.
To answer this question, phrase it in a way that would be maybe easiest for someone who doesn't believe to understand it. How would you say why good people go through hard times?
Well, for me, I know I'm a stubborn person and I want to do things my way.
Mm,
But when God lets me fall and lets me go through pain, lets me go through hard times, and lets me screw up and see the consequences of it,
mm,
I hopefully won't make the same mistake again. Because I'm like, okay, it's one thing to tell someone not to do something,
mm,
it's another thing to let them do it and show them why not to do it.
mm,
So that, even though it's not a universal thing, it's like hard times will come. We're in a fallen world.
mhm,
It's going to happen. Pain's going to happen. Mistakes. People aren't perfect. But through that, there's two things. God shows us how great he is, in that, like, if I do this many bad things, he'll still forgive me. And then I do
mhm,
something worse and he still forgives me and
mm,
is still there with me through all of it. That's one of the big things. It just shows the glory of God.
mm,
Pain shows the glory of God. Our fallen world shows the glory of God, because the more pain I go through, the more God has to show up. Paul says the
mm,
same thing. I think it's Romans, where he talks about that. What should I do then? Should I sin more to get more grace? No, absolutely not.
right.
But that is an effect of it, right? It's that the more I mess up, the more mistakes I do, the more I see how God really loves me. If I was perfect
Mm,
and I never made any mistakes, why would I need God?
mm,
Because it's that he gives me that grace that I can't have for myself, that I don't have in myself. And he's able to forgive me for things that I would think are unforgivable.
mm,
And not only that, but then he's able to go above and beyond to help me work through it. So that's the first thing, is
mm,
that it shows the glory of God. The second thing is that hard times push us towards God. It's that when we go through hard times, we can't get through them ourselves. If we try,
mm,
we'll just fail and it's just going to get worse. And if we follow God, he'll get us through it. It might take longer than we think. It might not be the path we want to do it. And
mm,
sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And sometimes we think there's a lot easier way of a way to do it. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, he has the best plan. No
mm,
matter how great of a plan we think, or I'm a stubborn person, I think I have the best plan all the time. But it's no.
mm,
Whenever I follow his plan and do what he wants me to do and follow through with him, you look back and you're like, oh, yeah, that would have been stupid if I'd done that.
mm,
So I'd say those are the two biggest reasons people go through hard times. Yeah, hard times suck. There's no way around it. And they're really terrible sometimes. But it shows you how great God is and it pushes you towards God.
mm.
Those are really my two big things with it.
Mm. Staying on the same track
Yeah.
here with newer believers, or people who don't believe yet and are considering it. So
Hmm.
they're kind of in that headspace of, I'm checking this out, but I'm not sure. I've asked this to a few people. I'm curious your take on this.
Okay.
For somebody who has considered going to
Hmm.
a church, a local church to them, but they haven't done it yet. They keep saying they're going to go that Sunday, and then they come up maybe with some excuse. I've got something else going on, or this, I don't really want to. It's too nerve wracking. Whatever it is, what is something you can tell them
Hmm.
to be able to finally get them to just go, just walk
Hmm.
in the door?
We're all sinners.
Mm,
And I feel like for some people, they don't want to go to the church because they're a sinner and they feel like they won't fit in.
mm,
And I think it's coming to that realization that no one there is perfect. In fact, some of them are terrible
mm,
people, but they're trying to follow Christ.
mm,
And ultimately, if it's hard to tell an unbeliever to just trust God because they don't know what that means.
mm,
Um, but there's also a beauty in that. You can tell them just trust God.
mm,
It doesn't make sense. That's a big part of Christianity for me, is that sometimes we won't do things that will make sense.
mm,
Sometimes it won't make any sense, but God tells us to follow him. Take up your cross daily and follow me.
mm,
Why we're carrying that cross might not make sense sometimes, but he tells us to do it. And I
mm,
think that's one of the big things for people who are trying to get into Christian settings. They feel like they're not good enough. If they could get to a point where they could be a good enough person, that then they can go to church and meet God, and then God will accept them.
mm,
But I think the greatest way to get people into the church is the family of God, right? So it should be a representation of God's love. So if it's a representation of God's love, then what will draw you towards God's love? Understanding God's love. So, to get people into the church, it's helpful to have them understand what God's love is.
mm,
And I think that's really how to get people into the church, is that if they understand how much God loves them, and not that he's a judge, but he's also your father. And he's
Mm,
not just here to tell you everything you've done wrong in life, but to help you get better and do better in
mm,
life. And I think it's that if they understand that God really loves them and he doesn't want to bring them to church to check off a box or to be a good Christian person, but he wants them to bring them to church to show the love of God, then I think that will bring them to the church, not as some chore they have to do or something that's Christian to do, but because it's an embodiment of the love of God. So I
mm.
think if they understand how great his love is, then they'll want to come.
How do you know if God's talking to you? And is it
Question.
different for
Absolutely.
everybody? Okay.
I've yeah, I've talked to a lot of people about it. It's an interesting thing because God can speak to people in so many different ways. And some people it's through the actual word of God, right?
Mm,
I mean, everyone gets spoken to a certain extent through the word of God, but some people more than others in that like God will give them a verse that tells them, "Oh, this is what you mean by that. Okay, this is what I got to go do."
mm,
Sometimes God speaks to them that. Sometimes God speaks to them through the church. Sometimes God comes in through the church, through someone else in the church, through another person. Um God has he owns the world. He can do
yeah.
he can work in so many different ways. Some people he talks to. Some people hear the voice of God and that's how he tells them what to do. And
Mm,
it's just it's very different depending on who you are. And there's no like right or better way to be told what to do by God. It's just a matter of listening. If you aren't listening, you through all caveats or whatever it could be, then you're never going to hear. So I think it's that rather than saying, "Okay, Lord, speak this to me right now and tell me what you want to do,"
mm,
we're not God. He can talk to
yeah.
us however he wants.
Mm,
And in fact, he talks to us in certain ways for a reason. Like you
mm,
remember that example I showed you with that lady and the Bible verses that kept popping up, right?
right.
God didn't verbally go tell her what to do, but he gave her the same verse 4 different times through multiple different people and put it on her heart that he's like, this is what I want you to do.
Mm,
So it's that, yes, God speaks differently to different people, but that's his choice and he has his reasons for it. I don't know what they're. I'm not God. But he speaks to different people for different reasons
mm,
and he has his reasons for it. Some people that I've known really God speaks to them through prayer. And it's like they sit down and they pray and then they know what God wants them to go do. And that's incredible to me. Or like other people, things just happen in their lives and God forces them in a direction and they're like, "Okay, you must be telling me to go this way." It's just a matter of trusting in God and that ultimately as long as you're seeking him, whatever you choose, he'll work together for good.
mm. I've got a few quick fire
Okay, I'm ready. Send
questions.
it.
You've
I'm
got
on
to
my
answer.
I'm on my toes. I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah.
Most of these should be pretty easy. I'll be
Quick fire
honest.
like grease fire or like
Yeah. I mean, it goes up in flames pretty quick. So,
okay.
all right. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Sand or snow?
Snow.
Okay. Favorite Bible verse?
Oh,
Generally.
Proverbs 3:5-6.
Okay. Favorite hobby?
Oh, music.
Favorite place in Maine?
The Northwoods.
Right. Okay.
Hmm. Yep.
Go to comfort food.
Oh, oh, chocolate pudding is
Oh,
heavenly.
you still like it after eating it? Okay.
It's my best friend, Justin.
Oh my word. Most encouraging person in your life.
Oh, mother.
One thing people misunderstand about faith.
Oh,
It's a,
that it's a set of rules and not a heart posture.
okay. Yeah. One piece of advice for someone going through suffering.
Mm. Patience.
One word that describes what God has done in your life. Now you can take a little bit longer to answer that one.
One word?
One word.
The cow. Oh,
I'll tell you what. A sentence. I'll
a
give you because
sentence.
one word's
Okay, that's
hard.
pretty good. That's better. I'm like one word. Can it be like an acronym? Okay, one sentence to describe what God has done for me in my life. Give me a reason to trust him.
Now I'm going to take this kind of the final question to close out here. How does someone logically and reasonably apply that to trust God in whatever they're doing? And
Mm.
maybe they pick one thing just to start this week.
Trust God with the things you hold on to most.
Mm.
The things you care about most. There's these things we just don't want to let go. There's
Mm.
things in my life I'm like, God, you can't have anything but this. I want that. And he takes that away and I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I trust you with it.
Mm.
And that's what I challenge too. It's not an easy thing to do. And what does it really mean to trust God with what we have most? Well, maybe it's not worrying about it.
Mm.
Work can be a really hard thing that some people just hold on to with all their might. They're like, I have to have this. I can't lose it.
Mm.
Just don't worry about it. Let God have control of it.
Mm.
Or your body, your health.
Mhm.
I thought I was in control of my physical this for a very long time. Nope.
Mm.
God's got it covered. I can't force it. He
Mm.
has a plan with me. I don't know what it is. Trusting him with that. And then trusting him, I think, ultimately with your faith,
Mm.
in that you aren't going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. No one's going to be perfect. But that as long as your heart is at a place where you're trying to pursue him, he's going to work all things together for good. If you don't know what to do next, pray. Ask God what he wants you to do. If you have a set of options and he doesn't tell you which one to do, choose one. And if it's not that one, he will close the door and he'll put you in a different direction.
Mm.
That's sort of my advice with it, is that God will work all things together for good, and that we can't be in control of it. And when we try to be in control of it, it's when it's going to fall apart.
Mm.
So for ways to start trusting God, look at the things you like the most, that you want the most. Trust God with that.
That's incredible. Landon, thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on the So What's the Point
Anytime.
podcast.
Yep.
Thank you guys for watching / listening. Depending on where you are, please go ahead and subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you in the next one.